All right, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome to the second part of our webinar series on building Grafana-based monitoring dashboards with Logz.io. So yesterday we focused on the basics of setting up Grafana visualizations, and today we're going to dig a bit deeper into the more advanced capabilities like alerting and log metric correlation. So before we begin, you should first know that this will all be recorded so that if you need to get up for a moment, you can always come back to the recording and come back to where you left off. And secondly, feel free to ask any questions in the questions box. We're going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. And with that, I'll hand it over to Noah Levy. She's on the product team for infrastructure monitoring. So Noah, take it away.
Thank you, Charlie. So hi, everyone. I'm Noah, and I'm a product manager in Logz.io for about a year and a half. Like Charlie said, yesterday you had a hands-on session with Daniel, our content developer, who showed you how to get started, how to navigate and create your own dashboard with Logz.io solution. Sorry. Today we're going to review more advanced features. We're going to start with how to configure alerts within the Grafana over Logz.io solution. And we will finish with creating logs and metrics correlation. So this slide is also from yesterday. It's a quick reminder of Logz.io cloud observability platform. Today we're going to focus on our infrastructure monitoring solution, also known as our metrics product, a hosted Grafana over Elasticsearch with our smart rollup mechanism that provides you a retention of 18 months. When we will finish, you will see how it is all connected and what are the benefits of having one unified platform to serve all your needs. So our first feature is alert. I think it's the most important feature in monitoring solution. So let's move to the demo and get started. Okay, I'm connected to my Logz.io account. I'm gonna move to the metric tab. Before I start, I assume that most of you here are familiar with the logging alert mechanism. So it is not the same feature. In our metrics solution, we have different capabilities, different needs. We chose to implement the Grafana alert mechanism over the Logz.io solution. So these are two different alerts and events. And today I'm going to show you how to get started with the Grafana alerts. So this is the welcome dashboard that you all saw yesterday. I configured a dashboard for this session. I marked it as one of my favorites, and now I can easily see it on my left side. I'm going to click it. At the upper part, I implemented 3 rules that we're going to go over. These are basic rules that you all need to get to know in order to understand how to get started with the Grafana alerts. So the first one is that you can create alerts only while you're using graph type visualization. What does that mean? Let's take, for example, the first visualization here. Once I'll click on Edit, I do not see the alert option. It does not appear. The reason is the type of the visualization. This is state type. If I'll change it to graph, you can easily see that the tab appears. If I change it to anything else that is not graph, this tab just does not exist. So the first rule you have to remember, if you want to create an alert, you have to have a graph type. The second thing you have to remember is that you can't use variables in your query or in your data source. Most of the Logz.io pre-built content uses variables in the dashboard, and it makes sense because when you view a dashboard, you want an easy way to slice and dice your data You want to be able to change things quickly. You want it to influence the entire dashboard. For example, I'm looking at this dashboard, but at this point, I want to see only FluentD data. I clicked it once and the entire dashboard data was changed. But if I'm going to drill down, for example, for pod CPU usage, you can see here, as Daniel showed you yesterday, my Lucene query is configured with all my variables. You can see here the $ and the name of the variable. This is what made it happen. This is why when I clicked on FluentD, the entire dashboard was changed. And I'm in graph type visualization, but when I'll go to alerts, you'll get this error message saying template variables are not supported in alert queries. So in order to create an alert, you have to remember that you can't use variables within the query. It kind of makes sense because when you build an alert, usually you want it to be able to run on all your servers, all your containers, all your pods, and you want the specific pod or the specific node that has issues to turn out when it meets the alerts threshold. So I'm going to show you a way, if you do not want to see the entire data, you can use it in the query, but not with variables. I will show you how in a minute. And the third thing you need to remember is that each graph can contain one alert. So I took this dashboard, I copied a pre-built dashboard from Logz.io, and I entered the whole data to one row. You can see here that all 14 panels are under dashboard data. I wanted to create 2 alerts for this demo, pod CPU usage and pod memory usage. So I duplicated them and entered them to a new row. I called it alerts by Logz.io. Now you can see my alerts, and when I'll drill down, you can see that I took down the query because I want to make sure that my alert is going to run over the entire pods that I have. It doesn't matter if I'll change it back to all, my visualization is not influenced by that. If I wanted to look only on Nginx, only on a specific cluster, I can just click here, enter my Lucene query saying where container name dot Nginx, and that's it. It will change the data, and that will be the data that the alert will be viewing. All right. So what do we have here? First of all, alert name, I called it pod CPU usage alert. Evaluate every 4. In this example, I configured the evaluation to be every minute for 5 minutes. This is the alert pending duration period. That means that only when the rule will be firing for more than 5 minutes, then the status will change from pending to alerting, and then the notification will be sent. And this is configurable. This is just an example. You can choose your own duration period. You can say every minute, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depends on your use case. The condition is actually the rule that will fire my alert. In this example, I took the average of the last 5 minutes. And this query, I remind you, we have pod CPU usage, and I told it to fire an alert if it's above 75%. I'm going to go back to this part and explain a little more at the end. Here you have how to handle errors and timeout. So if you have no data or nulls, you can do nothing, you can alert about it, you can keep the last state that was fired. If you have errors or timeout, again, what do you want to do? Do you want to alert about it? Do you want to keep the last state? Depends on you. Here you can configure your endpoints. For example, I told this alert to fire it to my own Logz.io account email, and I added my own message, my first alert. You can also enter any endpoint that is configured within Logz.io solution, meaning for those of you who already have endpoints here in notification endpoints, you will be able to find them here. These are the same endpoints. I'm going to show you an example of this alert. in a few minutes. So this alert was created and fired into my account. Okay. You also have here two other nice features. Test rule. I want to remind you all, this is my rule. Fire only if you're over 75%. So when I click here, I can see the current status, which is okay. And the reason is none of my pods are over 75%. I can also view the history. I can see when it was pending, when it was okay, when it was alerted. This was actually alert early this morning, and I have this alert in my email. Now let's go back to conditions. I want to show you again my query. This is query number A. I have a metric here that is looking on container CPU usage, and I grouped it by pod name. And then I told it, look at my query A, for the last 5 minutes, and alert me about it if it's over 75%. I can also add multi-conditions to the same query. I just click here, add query. And I can add a different aggregation. For example, I want to take the max value in the last 5 minutes. And if it's above 90%, then only if those two conditions exist, or I can change it to or. And then if one of those two happens, fire the alert. And I can add more and more and more conditions, as many as I want. It depends on your scenarios. Now, another thing I can do is also change the times, meaning I can tell it, I want both things to happen, but I want you to check it in a time sequence, meaning if this have happened and 5 minutes later this have happened, then only then fire my alert. Another thing that you can do is multiple conditions for multiple queries. I can go back here and I can add another query. I'm gonna do the shortcut and I'm gonna duplicate this one. And let's take, for example, Kubernetes container, sorry, let's take memory working bytes. Okay, I've added another metric to my query. Now I have two queries, A and B. I can go back here and I can add another condition. This time I'm gonna come here and look at my new query, query B. And now this is memory usage and it's in bytes, so I can tell it to be, I don't know, over 500 bytes. And then only if all those three conditions looking on pod CPU usage and memory usage, only then fire my alert. So this is the cool feature, and you can add more queries, you can add more condition, whatever you feel like it will work. Here on the left side is a way to see all the alerts that are configured for this dashboard. It's just another type of visualization in Grafana, alerts list. And I made sure it will show only the alerts that are configured for this dashboard. And I asked for my status that I'm interested in, my last state. And now when you come to the dashboard, you can easily see which alerts are configured and what are their latest status. If you want to view the entire alerts you have for this account, you can go to the left side to alerting, click on it. I don't know, want to save my changes. And here I can see all the alerts that are configured to this account. You can pause them, you can edit them. I'm gonna go to another alert. It will bring me down to the relevant dashboard, to edit mode of the panel, and to the same screen that you're familiar with. Here is, I'm gonna talk in 2 sentences about what we're planning to add by the end of the year. So we're working on the fact of opening Grafana API for you to work with, marked as resolved status, that will be able to work with several integrations like PagerDuty, OpsGenie, and more, and to add the graph print screen to the notification. Today, when notification is sent, you are able to see the value, the time, the name of the pod, the container, whatever triggered the alert, and you are able to drill down back to the Grafana. What we're gonna add is another print screen that will show exactly the status of the graph when the alert occurred. Correlation to logs. I'm gonna show you 2 useful and really cool features. I think that this part of the webinar is the most powerful and important part that really emphasize the benefits of having one consolidated solution for logging, metrics, tracing. One of the biggest challenges today is to be able to monitor and troubleshoot your applications. Today's architecture are becoming more and more complicated. You have Kubernetes that is uploading and downloading pods. You have continuous integration, continuous deployments, and it's becoming harder to troubleshoot and debug what you have when your logs are sitting in one place, your metrics are stored someplace else. You find yourself opening several applications, writing different queries just to find out what is the problem. I'm gonna open my demo and you will see how I can easily navigate and move from one solution to the other, and how by pre-configuring my data, I can make my troubleshooting a much easier and smoother experience. So let's go back and go again to my homepage. Like Daniel told you yesterday, I want to remind everyone that the logs sit in a different index, then they're coming to the Kibana. The metrics has a different index and they're showing in the Grafana. Again, I have a new dashboard with correlation in it. I'm going to load it. We're gonna do like a troubleshooting together. I'm gonna show you the capabilities, and then we'll drill down and I show you how I made it happen. So this is the same Kubernetes dashboard. Now I'm gonna turn on my new markers. You can see I turned on configuration changed and I have a new purple marker, and I'm gonna turn on failure and I have 2 new markers. When you review this cluster dashboard, you can easily see that I have a problem that starts around 4:30. When I hover, I can see that I have a problem in Nginx. I see that my pod memory usage is not good and my CPU usage is not good, but I don't know why. I can only see and detect that I have a problem. I can see where it is happening. I can see when it started, but I don't have the data of the why. If I'm gonna look at my first marker and I can see that it kind of related to where my problem started, I can see that someone changed configuration in Nginx. Now this data is coming from my logging. If I'll continue and look on my red markers, where the problem is kind of almost reaching its limit, I can see that I have failures, auto-determinated pod. Now, if you look on the left side here on the icon, you can see Explore in Kibana. I'm gonna click it, and we're gonna be moving to the Kibana tab. Before I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna show you I already know that my problem is in Nginx, so I'm going to filter here Nginx. I can also decide that I don't need this time frame. I can minimize that for, let's say, 3 hours is good enough. I can see where the problem started. I can see when it's reaching its limits. And now I'm going to explore in Kibana. And you can see here, I have a query, a Lucene query that already took the filters I filtered in my Kibana, in my Grafana. You can see that this is the exact time frame, the 3 hours that I was looking at. And I already seen the relevant logs to my problem. I can see that I have too many open files. I can see exactly the message, and it's all connected and makes sense. And I didn't do anything beside hovering on my markers, understanding that someone changed my configuration. I have failures, and within one click, I moved to my Kibana. I didn't need to query it again, and I was able to stay at the same time frame with my relevant variables. So how exactly did we make it happen? Everything I'm going to explain now is documented in our Logz.io docs. I also have links here, and I'm going to show you. So you don't have to remember anything by heart. You don't have to write it down. It's all documented. So basically, the drill down link is a basic capability of Grafana. It can be either a YouTube video, you can link it to an internal document you have that explains how to troubleshoot. What we did is enrich the feature and made it talk with our Kibana. We made it possible for it to be able to take all the variables from here and the time frame and just move to the Kibana. I'm going to click here under links on edit. You can see here the title that I gave it. Here you have a prefix that you need to use. It's also documented. And after query, I just put the query that I want to use that I know that will lead me to the correct logs. Here you can see the dollar signs, which means these are the variables for my dashboard. All you need to do is understand how your logs supposed to look like. For example, log type Kubernetes, and enter the relevant variables, and it will lead you to the Kibana. You can also decide if you want to open it in a new tab or not. And that's it. You define it once, and every time you troubleshoot, it will take you exactly where you need. I can change it to be anything else, and you can see once I'll click it again, my query is changed. Here in the demo, I don't have any logs from Fluentd, but it worked. Now let's talk about the markers, also known as annotations. I'm going to go to my dashboard setting, annotation section, and let's look at the first example. So this is the name that you see on the dashboard. And here is actually, again, what we did to emphasize the connection of the products. I know that my logs are being sent to a different cluster, to a different index. They are viewed in the Kibana, and I have a lot of indexes and a lot of data sources of logs. All of them are available here. You just need to choose the right logging account. I know that my logs are sent to demo logs account and not the metrics like the other one, and I chose it. I gave it the color that I want, and again, I use the Lucene query that I know that implements that someone changed the configuration. If I'll take this query and put it in the Kibana, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. So you can see here, you remember my one purple marker? This is my one purple marker. This is the exact log that showed me that someone changed the configuration. Here, under fields mapping, I chose two types of fields, message and service string. You can see here, what do they mean? You can see here that the message was the fact that someone changed the configuration, which you saw on the marker, and you saw the service name. And that's it. If I'm going back, I did the same thing. I can show you again. Annotations, failure, again. Gave it the name that I want, go to the relevant data source. Because it's failure, I decided that I wanted to have the color red. What's the failure in my logs? What do I want to present on my screen? And that's it. Within two definitions that I prepared ahead, I have markers on my dashboard helping me to better understand what am I seeing and how to troubleshoot. I also promised to show you that everything is documented. So everything I showed you, you can find in Logz.io docs under infrastructure monitoring, logs correlation. You have the exploring Kibana that shows you exactly how you need to write your query, how to work with variables, and you also have documentation on the annotations. It doesn't have to be configuration change, or it can be anything that is related to your use cases. It can be deployment has been made, user logged into my account, anything that can help you depend on the metrics that you're sending in the use case. Thank you. Charlie, we have any questions?
Yes, we have a couple good questions. Thank you so much, Noah. If you have any lingering questions, feel free to add them in the questions box or the chat box now, and we'll get to them. So the first one I have for you, Noah, is what are some typical types of annotations that teams add to their visualizations? So I think they're wondering, what kind of events would they want to see overlapped on their monitoring visualizations?
That's a good question. Like I said, it really depends on what are the metrics that you're sending. For example, in Logz.io, we use a lot of deployment markers. And we add to the marker who did the deployment and to which services. So you can easily see which developer, and you also have a link to the GitHub. So it's really, really nice. We see who did a deployment, where, which regions, what time, and if you see a problem that started occurring after a specific deployment, you just click on it and easily drill down. Like I showed you in the demo, configuration changes is also popular. And it can be anything. It could be even from your CI/CD system, anything that you think is relevant and can help you when you troubleshoot is a good marker.
Great, thank you. And there's kind of a similar question about alerts. It's a question about how to set the right threshold for an alert. So it might be helpful to go back into the product for this one. It's just how do I know which threshold to set for to send alerts?
It's a really good question, and there isn't a right answer, only one answer. I think that usually metrics has a specific trend that you expect them to be at. Like, normally how many users are logging, normally what is your CPU, what is your memory usage. You know what it's supposed to be. This is why you have retention for 18 months, because the trends are supposed to be kind of familiar. And then you can play with it and decide. You can say, okay, usually my CPU is not over 70%. I want to start and see what happens if I reach 75%. And you can see how it feels. But basically, if you send metrics and you aggregate them for a long, long time, you can view like 3 months and see, okay, what is the trend? What am I expecting? And decide what is what is irregular in your case. So it really depends on what are the metrics. Am I looking at application metrics, infrastructure metrics, I don't know, Kafka pipelines, it changes. I would say go back, see the regular trends, and decide what is the red line from your point of view.
Thanks, Noah. And another one is, how do I send Kubernetes metrics to Logz.io?
So like, I'm not sure if Daniel showed it yesterday, actually. We're working with the metric bit shippers. So you have here in send your data metrics section, you can see here how to send us Kubernetes metrics. Basically, we're working with metric bit shipper. It's just a simple YAML that you need to deploy. You can also find more documentation here in Logz.io docs in shipping, ship your data to Logz.io, and Charlie, you can share those links later on, and they can view it. It's kind of easy.
Great. Thanks so much, Noah. And that's all of our questions for today. So thanks everybody so much for joining. Like I said earlier, you'll all get a recording of this webinar. And if you weren't able to attend yesterday's part 1, you'll get a recording of that as well, along with the decks. So you'll have access to any of the links. And if you weren't able to find a question for this webinar, feel free to reach out to Logz.io directly, and we'll get an answer for you. So thanks so much for joining, and be well, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.